What if the way we approach prayer is the key to unlocking not just deeper faith, but a life transformed by the divine? Prayer is an intimate act, a bridge that connects our hearts to God. Yet, like any sacred act, its depth and impact depend on how we approach it. While the simplicity of speaking to God is enough, the intention, faith, and alignment behind our prayers shape their effectiveness. In today's discussion, we'll not only explore the common mistakes that hinder our prayers but also uncover how to foster a richer, more fulfilling relationship with God through prayer. Imagine walking into a room and meeting someone who speaks to you without meaning their words. They repeat the same sentences every day, hardly noticing your presence. Would you feel valued? Similarly, God seeks sincerity in our conversations with Him. As Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 6:7, and when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. This isn't to discourage frequent prayers but to remind us that authenticity matters. Prayer is less about eloquence and more about connection. Consider Sarah, a mother of two who said the same prayer every morning, "Lord, bless this day." While her intentions were good, the prayer became routine, devoid of reflection. But one morning, after her youngest child fell ill, Sarah paused. She poured out her fears, her gratitude for God's past faithfulness, and her hope for healing. In that moment, she realized the power of heartfelt prayer. It shifted her from ritual to relationship. To avoid empty words, start with silence. Before you speak, reflect on what you truly feel and need. As C.S. Lewis beautifully put it, the prayer preceding all prayers is, "May it be the real I who speaks. May it be the real thou that I speak to." In our increasingly public lives, where social media encourages visibility, even prayer can become a performance. Jesus cautioned against this in Matthew chapter 6:5, "When you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others." True prayer is not about impressing those around us. It's about a private, humble communion with God. In one community, there was a man named Ethan who often prayed eloquently at church gatherings. While his prayers inspired others, Ethan realized his heart was more focused on approval than on God. This revelation humbled him, leading him to prioritize private, heartfelt prayer. Let us remember that prayer's power is amplified in private moments, as Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6:6, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen." This doesn't diminish the value of public prayer but emphasizes sincerity over showmanship. Faith is the lifeblood of prayer. Without it, our words lose power. As James chapter 1:6 reminds us, "When you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind." Anna's story illustrates this. After years of praying for a stable job, she stopped believing it would happen. Her prayers became hollow, uttered out of habit rather than expectation. One evening, a friend shared this verse with her, "If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer." Matthew chapter 21:22. Anna realized her lack of faith was holding her back. She began praying with trust, surrendering to God's timing, and soon found unexpected opportunities unfolding before her. Faith doesn't guarantee that all our desires will be fulfilled exactly as we envision. Rather, it allows us to trust that God's answers, whether yes, no, or wait, are for our good. One of the most profound shifts in prayer is moving from God, "This is what I want," to "Lord, what do you want for me?" When we align our prayers with God's will, we step into a partnership with Him, trusting His infinite wisdom. In 1 John chapter 5:14, we read, "This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us." This verse doesn't restrict prayer but invites us to seek alignment with God's greater plan. Jesus Himself demonstrated this in the Garden of Gethsemane, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew chapter 26:39. Even in anguish, Jesus modeled surrender. Patience in prayer is one of the most difficult yet rewarding disciplines of faith. How often do we grow frustrated when we don't see immediate results, feeling as though God is silent? Yet, the Bible is full of examples where waiting was part of God's perfect plan. Consider Abraham and Sarah, who waited decades for the fulfillment of God's promise to give them a son. Though their journey was marked by moments of doubt and impatience, God's timing was impeccable. Isaac's birth not only fulfilled their desires but became a pivotal part of God's plan for humanity. As it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3:11, He has made everything beautiful in its time. This verse reminds us that God's delays are not denials, they are opportunities to align our lives with His greater purpose. Trusting His timing requires faith that stretches beyond the immediate, knowing He is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot see. One practical way to cultivate patience in prayer is to reflect on past prayers God has answered. Keep a journal of those moments, big and small, where His faithfulness shone through. When doubt creeps in, these reminders will strengthen your resolve and renew your trust. Often, we approach prayer as a monologue, a list of requests or praises offered up to God. But prayer is meant to be a dialogue. While speaking to God is vital, listening for His response is equally important. In the stillness, God often whispers truths and guidance into our hearts. Elijah's encounter with God on Mount Horeb is a powerful example. After experiencing a great wind, an earthquake, and fire, Elijah heard God in a gentle whisper. 1 Kings chapter 19:12. This story reminds us that God's voice isn't always loud or dramatic, it's often found in moments of quiet reflection. How can we make space for listening? Start by incorporating silence into your prayer time. After presenting your thoughts to God, take a few moments to sit quietly, inviting Him to speak. This practice not only deepens your connection but also helps you discern His will more clearly. As C.S. Lewis once wrote, we must lay before Him what is in us, not what ought to be in us. By being honest and open, we create space for God to reveal His wisdom, even if His answers challenge our desires. One of the hardest aspects of prayer is letting go of control. We naturally want to hold onto our plans, our timelines, and our understanding of what's best. But true prayer requires surrender, acknowledging that God's ways are higher than ours. Isaiah chapter 55:8-9. Martha's story in the New Testament illustrates this struggle. When her brother Lazarus fell ill, she and Mary sent for Jesus. But Jesus delayed his arrival, and Lazarus died. Despite her grief, Martha expressed faith in Jesus' power. And in His perfect timing, Jesus performed one of His greatest miracles, raising Lazarus from the dead. John chapter 11:1-44. Martha's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, God's plan is at work. Surrendering control doesn't mean abandoning hope, it means entrusting our hopes to the One who holds all things together. When we surrender in prayer, we say, Lord, not my will but yours be done. This act of faith frees us from the burden of trying to control outcomes, allowing us to rest in God's promises. Too often, prayer becomes our last resort instead of our first response. We try to solve problems, exhaust every option, and then turn to God when nothing else works. But prayer is meant to be our lifeline, a constant connection with the One who sustains us. The Apostle Paul encourages us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5:17, pray without ceasing. This doesn't mean we spend every waking moment in formal prayer, but that we cultivate a heart posture of continual communication with God. One way to incorporate this practice is through breath prayers, short, heartfelt phrases repeated throughout the day. For example, Lord, guide me, or Jesus, I trust in you. These prayers anchor us in God's presence, especially during busy or challenging moments. Gratitude is a powerful force in prayer. When we focus on what we're thankful for, our perspective shifts from lack to abundance. Gratitude reminds us of God's faithfulness and opens our hearts to receive His blessings. In Philippians chapter 4:6, Paul writes, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. This verse highlights the importance of combining gratitude with our prayers. Take the story of a young woman named Lily. Facing financial difficulties, she felt overwhelmed and hopeless. One evening, she decided to list everything she was grateful for: her health, her family, and even small blessings like a kind neighbor. As her list grew, so did her faith. She realized that even in her struggles, God's provision was evident. This gratitude transformed her prayers from desperation to trust. Prayer isn't confined to specific times or places, it's a way of life. When we weave prayer into our daily routines, it becomes the foundation of everything we do. Start your day with prayer, inviting God into your plans. Pray before making decisions, asking for His wisdom. End your day by reflecting on His goodness. These small acts create a rhythm of reliance on God, shaping our hearts and minds in His image. As C.S. Lewis said, "I pray because I can't help myself. I pray because I'm helpless. I pray because the need flows out of me all the time, waking and sleeping." It doesn't change God, it changes me. Prayer is more than words, it's an act of faith, surrender, and connection. By avoiding common mistakes, empty words, seeking approval, doubting God, and focusing solely on our desires, we can deepen our relationship with Him. Let your prayers be sincere, humble, and filled with trust in His perfect plan. And as you grow in faith, may your life become a living testimony of God's grace and power.